That's what I'm telling you.
I understand
Well,
that.
then let me answer the question instead of asking it repeatedly. What I'm telling you is it's because
I'm
they don't
dumbfounded
care.
by it, is what I'm saying.
I'm trying to explain it to you. When they and I'm trying to explain it to you. If you're going to ask a rhetorical question, don't ask it. If you're asking a question you want the answer to, I can give you the answer. The answer is that it's fucking popular. She asked somebody to fucking shoot her in the head. She asked somebody on Craigslist to shoot her in the head. Now, this is right after she'd gotten a protection order against me that I wasn't allowed to do anything about. I didn't know that I fucking had a court date. I didn't even know she was in that fucking state. I was pissed off because she was able to get a protection order and she wasn't even in the same state. I didn't know how any of that worked. The people that I was being sent to for fucking help stopping abuse are goddamn therapists the whole fucking time. And you know what? I get so busy answering everybody's fucking questions. I am overwhelmed with it. Over and over and over again, I don't get to tell my story. I don't get to show my story. I don't get to show the way that these people doing these things affects me and prevents me from being able to do things for myself. And then I just end up having a panic attack, and it's overwhelming. I try to get people to, instead of talking over me like it's no big deal, I'm like, hey, this is literally a very big deal. It is a very big deal. I've got drug addicts that I'm having to depend on, and half of those drug addicts won't even admit that they're drug addicts because they're fucking alcoholics or because their drugs are goddamn pharmaceuticals. And I got to go to these people for help before Natalie was killed. And I got to go to law enforcement before she was killed. And then after she was killed, I had to go literally back to those very same law enforcement agencies to continue trying to turn in Tim Beeson and Matty Boa and all of their fucking junkie buddies who just wouldn't leave me the fuck alone. It's just like this bullshit with Andrew Wolnez. It is all over the same excuses. All I needed was a goddamn court date against Natalie and Alicia Bollinger and a fucking friend to show me how to take goddamn screenshots. That's all I fucking needed for an entire goddamn year. And what I got was fucking shat on. What I got was people telling me I need this and I need that and I need this and I need that. Only after Natalie was killed, I find out that half of these people I was going to for help are fucking selling drugs. They're literally selling drugs for people like Blaine McCrelius, who wouldn't leave me the fuck alone. Like, I literally couldn't get away from these people. And meanwhile, Blaine McCrelius, well, his ex-girlfriend, her name was Dawn Bird, and I was stuck living with her and Kenneth Wilson and Leah Plunkett while they fucking ripped me off for all of my fucking disability money, and they're fucking selling drugs, and they're fucking strung out on the fucking drugs. So I'm having to stay there while they take fucking complete advantage of my disability money. And they didn't start doing that until I moved out of the low income in Chapel, Nebraska, because I couldn't afford to be in both places. Meanwhile, I had to maintain paying the lease in Chapel, Nebraska until an entire year lease was up so that I could actually get that on my credit record. And once that was on my credit record, then it was supposed to be able to help me out because I've been fucking homeless. It dropped off at 18 with nothing. You know, it's not like I went, hey, I got a great idea. I would love to be stuck in the middle of fucking Nebraska where it's a fucking racist KKK town and I look like a goddamn Jew. I mean, I am completely overwhelmed with this stuff. The thing is that when people watch these Natalie Bollinger things, they go out of their way to ignore any and all evidence that does not fit their assumption. The reason that I have to make videos where I'm screaming and yelling is because that's literally all they care about. But it's kind of like in the jail. When they're committing crimes against you and you need somebody to be there, you need someone to show up. You literally have only one option, and that is to self-harm. Like, you've been in the jail. You've seen with the other inmates. That's literally the only thing you can do because they will do everything in their power to ignore you, to play stupid, and just... So when they make these Natalie Bollinger things, they take the slander from the Bollinger family and they go out of their way to pretend that anything that I say must be a lie. And it is so overwhelming because all they have to say is mentally ill, mentally ill, mentally ill. The same thing that Andrew Wolnez told you. The same thing that he tells other people. He tells them that I'm a rapist and a child molester, that I'm schizophrenic, that I'm delusional. And people come up and tell me this, and I record it. I have to. And then they get pissed off when I post it up on YouTube, even though they all know that I fucking record all the time. Like, I got a question for you. How long have you known that I record all the time?
Since I've known you.
Was I honest about it with you?
Yeah. Let's do one. What did I say? I don't care. I'm not ashamed of anything I say.
And so, the thing with me with,
But I like to go out there and let these people know that this is bullshit. I would like to fucking let them know that that needs to end. That you're being victimized for someone who's already been found guilty.
yeah,
And
but
I think that the A&E show should pay for that because they slandered you, defamated you, and continuing to do so.
yeah, but
They haven't put a retraction out. I haven't seen a retraction.
and they're not gonna until somebody actually verifies the evidence. Those two things that we listened to earlier.
That's what it upsets me. That's what I'm
Yes,
asking.
sir.
Is that I'm not trying to upset you. I want to
They
understand
they
why is it
they
being
paint
perpetuated.
me they paint me as some sort of crazy stalker who couldn't take no for an answer, which is the reason I'm showing you
It
all
doesn't
this.
matter if you were. It doesn't matter. That's not why she's dead. You had nothing to do with her death.
Right, but the thing is that the thing is trying to wrap your head around that isn't important. What's important is looking at the actual evidence. It'll answer most of your questions. People look for someone that they can harm,
I
someone
know.
that's easy to victimize. I never wanted to go to YouTube. When I went to my Facebook, it's because people were calling me up and threatening to kill my friends and family, and in most cases people I wasn't even friends with anymore. It was the people that I was sad about what happened, and I typed about it. And I knew that the people who were harassing me, I knew that they were primarily over the Natalie situation, because they weren't telling me that they were going to hurt Natalie when they were calling me. They weren't doing anything like that. It was everybody else that they were threatening. They were threatening to harm Jamie. They were threatening to harm. Uh, at the beginning, they didn't threaten to harm Jamie. That came a bit later. At first, it was just whoever I was typing about on my Facebook. So I was trying to turn that in, and just nobody gave a shit. My friend Miss Peaches, that's Kayla Trujillo, what she wanted to do is sign me up for a fucking dating site. And I got sick of her making that suggestion over and over again. So I finally let her do it. I gave her all of my information to log in, all of that. And then all of a sudden I got a bunch of advertisements from lonely housewives wanting attention. And I'm like, I want a fucking St. Bernard. Jesus Christ. Can I get a dog? Can I please have a place where I can have a dog, please? You know? So with the two recordings earlier that you listened to,
Mm-hmm.
now I spoke about that on my channel, and I'm not gonna have you verify whether or not what I said on my channel was true because you haven't listened to that yet. Um, and that's not even saying that you will, because we got a lot of evidence stocked up, but you're free to. Um, Sorry. So with those two recordings, you understand why I'm having you listen to them, and why I'm recording them, and why I'm going to be sending them through emails.
Yeah.
Okay. You also understand the safety issue for those people,
Mm-hmm.
and that I do care about them,
Mm-hmm.
and that through all of this, the reason that I've had to go public is because I haven't had a friend or family member to go in with me, aware of the situation. It was people who had their own ideas. Obviously, the situation with that woman and her son, that's a scary situation. Also, with the situation with that other lady and her husband in the Walnut situation, that's obviously a scary situation. Did either of those women sound like they're mean or hateful or evil at all?
No. No.
Exactly. So I mean, it's not a situation where
I know the one lady with her son pushing her in the wrong direction. She can go a little psycho.
yeah.
She'll get mad.
The other one can too. Those are two fucking mama bears.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. So the thing is that that stuff is not okay. It's also a situation where I don't want to be putting their names and numbers and all sorts of other crazy shit on there. You also got to hear that there's phone numbers
That's why I didn't
and
mention
other
her name.
private. Yep. There's phone numbers and other private information in there. And on my videos, I try not to post up people's phone numbers and names like that. Um, especially not phone numbers, unless number one, it's an extreme emergency and somebody's life is in danger, or number two, their mental issues are putting my goddamn evidence in jeopardy, and that puts lives in jeopardy. I mean, my sisters had to put up with years of this. Um, I've got the stuff with my sister. It's live on YouTube though, so anybody can listen to it. But I mean, it's not just A&E, and it didn't start with A&E. I mean, there was Sword and Scale episodes 109 and 110, and wait till we get into Mike Boudet and what his friend Josh did. There's also Jennifer Djowski from Heavy D, which is a quasi almost fake news organization. Um, and these were the first two news places that I really, was able to try to speak to. Candace Bondurant, she's the Candace that's in the screensaver for this video. She actually paid for that room. And there was also a homeless man, and I can't remember his name at the moment, but he stayed in the room with me. The problem is, drug addict, and it's fucking amazing that he was the tweaker and I was the one up all night. So I didn't have anybody there to observe the situation or to help me to turn it in properly. I had no idea who Mike Boudet was from Sword and Scale. There's also there's been over a dozen Natalie Bollinger things made this week, which I showed you. That's just on YouTube. The Natalie Bollinger groups, when Natalie was first killed, the Bollingers really pushed heavily and used these things heavily to harm me and try to pull the wool over my eyes. And when people were telling me that the Bollingers are doing these things, I'm like, that does me no good. If you're telling me the Bollingers are threatening to kill me and they're trying to organize with others to fucking kill me and my friends and family, then yeah, take a fucking screenshot so I can turn it into the cops. I'm sick and tired of the people out here doing exactly the same thing, whether it's internet web sleuths just trying to stir up the mud, or a bunch of drug addicts out here who all talk trash about the other witnesses. Fuck. I can't explain a situation without getting to hear about what a horrible person this junkie is and what a horrible person that junkie is. And at that point, that's how they're talking about the other person. The situation with Seth, for example. Yeah, Seth did a bunch of junky shit. He didn't steal my wallet, though. And what did I have to deal with from that?
Everyone making accusations.
That's right. And I even was having a whole bunch of anxiety about that because they kept on telling me that.
He came in my tent when I was sleeping, and Gucci was attached to my backpack and was attached to me and drugged me out of my tent, through my tent wall, backwards. So when I regained my orientation, I was now at the trailhead like this. So I was going back to Ashley's tent to find out what was going on. I didn't know if it was an animal or what, Well, he comes walking up behind me. He goes, like he's going to pet Gucci. And I said, hey, you have a German Shepherd. I said, just pet him. Don't put your hand in front of his face. Just walk up and pet him. He actually is going to pet him, and then he sidesteps him and runs around me. And when he did, Gucci grabbed him right by the ass cheek. And he goes, that's the second time your dog's bit me. I said, when was the first time? And then all hell broke loose. That's when I found out that he was robbing my tent, and that's why my dog bit him. Gucci hates him still today.
Oh, your dog is literally sleeping on my foot, and he only growls at me when I growl at him first. So, but that's fine.
Just talking.
You see, that's still not loaded up. Yeah. So.
Can I get smoke from you?
You may. Anyway, the thing with all of this though is that there's at least 7 or 8 more of those. Also, like I said, a lot of people keep offering to do horrible things to Wolnez for me. So the next set of stuff that we're going to be listening to is a whole bunch of people and the worst ideas on the planet. We're going to be listening to people talking about killing him, talking about beating him to death, talking about blowing his head off or putting rats in his vehicle. We're going to be listening to people talking about running him down because he won't stop threatening them. Um, like, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of people that said that. So we're going to listen to those, and a lot of those have personal information in them. They're pretty long videos, so you'll basically be getting paid like $60 a fucking video for some of those because one of them is about 3 hours long because several of these people came here to help me, and instead I've got recordings of them stopping to sell drugs, leaving to go get drugs, escorting me where I needed to go, which is nice. But then there's the situation of where the whole point was to observe stuff, and you can hear them in the videos. They're I'm paying attention. I'm paying attention. I'm like, fuck, I've got literally recordings of 3 different people doing that. Of course, you don't see them in the video because I'm trying to keep their faces safe. Not that anybody cares. Your face is already on my YouTube channel. Matter of fact, a couple of occasions where you were talking to Bolnez, it was definitely recorded because it was after the protection order. I can show you a couple of them. The original temporary protection order, and also he had he wasn't allowed on Safeway property because when he went into the store and was screaming at the top of his lungs that I raped a little girl and that I raped my sister and I killed a little girl in Colorado and all sorts of stuff like that. So Candy was going to help turn it in, and instead of her turning it in as a crime committed against me, she had him ejected from the store because she felt threatened by him yelling at her. So we should have done both. But the thing is, it's a situation where she hadn't, through any of this, taken the time to sit down and look at it. Her and her mother had already made lots of decisions. You remember I was telling you about Kylie, the TFCC investigator? So on November 9th of 2023, you notice I've been searching with my eyeballs, right? And looking you in the face to the best of my ability. So,
Thank you.
Where was I at with Candy?
Candace and her daughter, the TFCC investigator.
Oh, yeah. So Kylie, the TFCC investigator, the one that I spoke with recently, that verified that she was aware of the Natalie Bollinger situation and that it was real. And we'll listen to that video, but we're probably not going to be able to get to that today. The video that I posted up before this one has a lot of paper evidence. It's got at least, I want to say, 4 or 5 different evaluations from doctors, and basically just sums them all up. And then later in the video, it shows the stuff from Deputy Taylor. But primarily, I'm going to be focused on the stuff with Andrew Wolnez breaking the protection order over and over and over again. And you'll get to see in the stuff that I sent to Claire Jordan, at least a dozen violations from Wolnez sent to her, but she's so fucking slow. So I didn't send it to her every single time I sent something. I kept reaching out and trying to get help on the internet, reaching out in town, trying to get help, going to all the numbers that I was told to go to. You know the routine. So just like with those 2 ladies that I spoke with earlier, or that we listened to the recordings earlier, and we did record them obviously on the audio recording device, and that's obviously for their safety. It's also a situation where basically, in order to keep those people safe, it's tough if anybody knows their story. If even one person knows their story, it could go awry. And I've already spoken with 2 people that know one of the ladies' stories, so that makes it so it's a scary situation. It'd be easy to find them. Also, I'm going to give you an example. When I was in chapel, that's not related to this because I don't want anybody getting shit confused. There was a guy in Chapel, Nebraska. His name was Kenneth Zarecki, and he worked at the Pump and Pantry on Main Street in Chapel. And So one day I found out that he was having sex with an underage girl. And I tried to go to some people to try to get help. And also, the people who were telling me this were friends with the 14-year-old girl. And I did try to turn it in. But also, the situation is when I spoke up on I believe I spoke up on Facebook. I might have spoken up on YouTube as well. I hope both. But I told the story, but I didn't use his name. And I went to Pumpkin Pantry, and he told me that he knew all about my YouTube channel and what I'd said about him. I'm like, fucking hook, line, and sinker. Got this motherfucker. So he told me I wasn't, sorry, Gucci. He told me I wasn't allowed uh, on the property there anymore, which turned out not to be true. Now, the creepiest part of that is that somebody knew enough about the situation well enough to warn that pedophile, knowing he was a pedophile, knowing the story was true. Because if they didn't know the story was true, they would have gotten it completely confused, going, who the fuck is he talking about?
So you didn't mention any names. You just mentioned the scenario. Right?
Exactly. So as soon as he got threatening with me, the first thing I did is
red flag.
Goddamn right I did, and post his fucking name up for God and everybody to see. Same thing with John Stevens. John Stevens wanted to fucking come at me and assault me on multiple occasions. Well, he assaulted me 3 times. One at the Shell and twice across the street. One of those times across the street was over at the laundromat. And then when I was walking from the laundromat to the corner over there on my way back to the direction of Safeway, he assaulted me there again. And then afterwards, he was pretending like I was going after his balls. I'm like, this is a surefire way to fucking get people to believe you're certainly not the Christian that you're pretending to be. And you got to see some of the videos with him. I mean, that's already on my YouTube channel, so I don't need you to verify that. That's very recently been posted. But John Stevens wanted to come forward in the first videos with him, and we'll actually listen to those too, because he definitely wanted to come forward. He just didn't want to be targeted, and he didn't want to be cut off from his stash. And that's a common theme, which you're well fucking aware of. I mean, are you aware of that?
I am.
All right. I was going to say, we can play some more of that shit for you. And I don't hate these people. I keep trying to work with them. But you see how it's stuff that needs to be done offline. Many of these people who are pissed off because it's posted up publicly, I mean, does it appear to you as if I'm doing it just to be
malicious? No.
Yeah.
No.
Well, according to what you've been able to gather yourself from all of this, why do you believe I have it up?
I think you're trying to vindicate yourself. I think you're trying to protect yourself from other people committing more crimes against you on conjecture and hearsay.
Actually, I'm trying to protect my sister and my niece.
Well, your family,
and,
but that's you.
They never should have done this.
No one should have done this.
Now, the stuff that you've gotten to see and the stuff that I got to show already, with them pretending that I'm schizophrenic and delusional over, like with the Mary Lindsay stuff where she was saying that I was delusional over abuse by the death of my friend or whatever she had written. Like, have I shown you enough to show that's not a delusion?
Yeah, definitely not a delusion.
So, how about my having a mental breakdown and fucking talking 400 miles an hour or having issues like now?
I think that it's part of the damage that's been done to you. That's post-traumatic stress. It's a side effect. And having Asperger's, you already know that when we have meltdowns, they melt down.
We got to stop calling them meltdowns because that's not what it is. If anybody else was put under this kind of stress, they call it a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
I think we definitely need to clear that up now and get a distinction drawn, especially when there's a difference between high functioning autism and Asperger's.
Yeah.
I don't care how they classify it. The reason that they took Asperger's and classified it as high functioning autism, very specifically, the reason they did that is because people with Asperger's are denied all of their rights as a human being because they're intelligent.
So, I thought it was because they want to be called Asperger.
ASP. So the situation is that a lot of people noticed that they had loved ones that had Asperger's, and people didn't try to understand them at all and tended to be extremely cruel to them, and those people tended to primarily show PTSD symptoms. And as we were reading day before yesterday, that stuff also manifests as looking like a delusion to somebody who doesn't look. It could manifest itself to look like any number of other quote unquote mental illnesses. This is why the specific mental illness needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
Also, with a lot of people that are on here, they were fine with being recorded and they were going to come forward, but they didn't come forward right away. They also didn't find out what was going on. So when they finally did try to make an attempt to go around to these places, they still didn't know what the hell was going on. With Candy, she wanted me to go talk to this person who was supposed to be an investigator, and we went and talked to this guy. I believe his name is Micah. And they started giving me the speech as soon as we got in there. And Candace did not know enough about the situation to stop them from what they were doing. They were trying to basically lie about the situation and intimidate us into not telling them what we're supposed to. Like when they say, well, we're not investigators. Well, you're Adult Protective Services. That's supposedly why you're supposed to be here. So this is what we need to focus on. If you're going to tell me that you're not an investigator, well, what the fuck does Adult Protective Services do? What do you do? So they gave us the information for Kylie, the TFCC investigator. She was not nice. And I do have the recording somewhere, but it's on the audio device stuff. And not my new audio device, but the old one they somehow lost or misplaced the last time I was in jail, along with 11 of the micro SD things that go inside of phones. They were all full. I don't know what to do with the loss of that evidence, because that's probably an additional 30 assaults that happened here in Tillamook, and also the attempted either rape or assault of a woman over by the, what do you call it? Is it St. Andrew's Church or St.
Albans?
Yeah. So I was staying on the road right next to that church, just to the east of it. And I heard some screaming, and I got up, and there's somebody on top of a girl fucking choking her. Well, obviously I can't run after them. Also, she left with him, so whatever. I mean, it's not like I made her go with him. It's not like I chose for it. And I was pretty sure that it was Farnsworth, but I wasn't going to go accusing Farnsworth because all I did was see him from the back. That's one of the other major issues, is that I don't necessarily know who it is that late at night. By the time I get my stuff recording and I'm at my vehicle, they don't care if I don't record it. So once they figured out, Andrew and his friends figured out that as long as they do it in a minute or less, I won't be able to record it. All I can do is make a video after the fact. And then they go, oh, he's making stuff up. Well, I have enough videos that show that it's not made up. But then last night, for example, I didn't hear a bunch of people super revving their vehicles going by for a lot of the night while I was recording. just, a few of them. As soon as I was done with my live recording, it was whoa, 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 like probably for a good 5 or 6 passes. And it's not like they did them all in rapid succession, um, but it was fucking obnoxious and unnecessary. I'm too lazy to start recording. I just want to go to sleep. My back hurts. My fucking neck hurts. I'm sorry for talking so much. Like I said, the American Constitutional Law book I've had for a while. I have been reading it. But also, like I said, I've been following the instructions that are on that instruction sheet from all the way back in 2022 from the Adventist Hospital. I did show you the stuff a little bit with TFCC, but there's a thick stack of it. And that pile that I just moved to somewhere that was in my pocket, that's all the stuff I'm supposed to carry around with me according to lawyers, autism advocates, and police, and the judge.
Well, it's just like everybody's just putting it off to somebody else, It's sickening.
Well, I have the instructions that I got from the hospital that I carry around with me so that when they want to argue, I can show them that. I have the protection order from Andrew Wolnez so that when they want to argue, I can show them that. I was going to have you read the instructions on it so that everybody is very well aware of what it actually is.
Yeah, I read them the other day.
Yeah, I know you read them the other day. That's not the point. The point is to verify it.
Yeah, I did. And I read it.
I mean, reading it out loud. That's what I keep.
You had me read it out loud to verify it online. I thought that's what you were having me do.
Well, that's one of the things with your voice being very, very quiet. I go back and I listen to the videos, and I found the ones that were attached to the permanent protection order, which is exactly the same stuff, but and I have actually showed it on video. The thing is, showing that it actually does exist and having someone actually read it off loud enough to be heard. I didn't listen to all of it because it's just part of it's the distance between the computer and yourself and the sound filter thing. A lot of it has to do with how quiet you are, and then of course you need new glasses, dude.
They're all smudged up, yeah.
Well, you haven't been able to read anything in any of them. I have some stuff to clean it off. They're smudged.
Yeah, they were all smudged earlier. That's why I whipped them off.
All right.
And yeah, I know you need new glasses.
Well, I was noticing that with everything I give you, it takes you a really long time to even start to read it, and almost every time I hand you something, I have to remind you to read it out loud. So if you need new glasses, you need new glasses.
Yeah, because my new ones I had, Chelsea tore them all apart and turned them into a file.
Well, the next set of stuff, I guess, is the we're going to be listening to Seth, David, Jennifer, Mike, and possibly yourself as well. There's also the stuff with Pun and Tiffany. And like I said, I try not to, post all of that stuff out there for God and everybody. There's also the stuff with the two ladies that I spoke about. The other ones, they said that they're going to help. They also told me these stories, like Mike Haynes telling me about the protection order he had to get against that lady. That, now her son's harassing him. And then there's the lady that, temporarily has to be nameless and hopefully can remain so. She's going through the same thing. I mean, they're all trying to put a stop to cops just looking the other way. There's a point where they just decide you're not a person. And when I got to town, they'd already decided that. And I was also immediately targeted over the Natalie thing. And then I had to deal with the rumors. And then I'm told, well, why don't you move somewhere else? Like, the stuff that I showed you from, Colorado with Natalie, do you think they were nice to me?
No.
No, they weren't. And do you think that they're any nicer to me now?
No.
They are.
Are they?
They are, yeah. When Natalie was first killed, my face was all over Denver news, and I was dropped in downtown Denver. It was a fucked situation. I was immediately made homeless. I'd been assaulted by Don Bird, and I was down at Kenneth Wilson and Leah the Plunkett's when that happened. They'd ripped me off for a bunch of my disability money. They also insisted I pay extra rent, and then they also wanted a bunch of Christmas gifts, and then I got an Oculus Rift because it was on the list of things I'm supposed to spend my back money on that's supposed to help autistic people. So it wasn't compatible, so Ken was going to go take it back and get the money and bring it back to me. Instead, he decided to spend the money on bills. That's what he told me anyway. And then there's the money that I had given him for bills. I don't know what he did with that. And then there was the money that he was supposed to have for supplies, which is food, because I was disabled. I couldn't, obviously I'm not going to be walking across 2 or 3 blocks even with a bag of groceries. I'm not fucking able. It didn't help that a lot of the places around there, they'd only give you paper sacks. So I was basically stuck spending my disability money to buy stuff that's not healthy and 3 times what it would cost me to go purchase it somewhere else just because it's in a convenience store that's close. Well, it's not that convenient. I'm living off of, at the time, just over $600 a month. Like, that's definitely not enough to live on. And then they want me to go to therapy in Nebraska, and I'm going to therapy in Colorado. I'm seeing 3 different therapists. I'm seeing 3 different fucking caseworkers that are supposed to advocate for me. I mean, before Natalie was killed, it was a giant fucking mess. And when she got killed, all of those police departments that had blown me off, all of those therapists, all of a sudden everybody's like, yeah, they have to subpoena me. I can't tell your personal information. They have to subpoena me. I'm like, excuse me, lady. I came to you about threats, harassment, and abuse, including people threatening to kill me and my friends and family, and sending emails of people threatening to kill me and my friends and family, and making fake accounts in my friends and family's name. Excuse me. What do you mean subpoena? Like, you should have come forward about this. You're a mandatory goddamn reporter, and that's why these idiots sent me to you to begin with. Tamara was a badass. She had a 14-year-old son who had Asperger's, and she helped me to get my disability. And the plan was, once the disability was in place, then she and I were going to turn in the abuse together. I still didn't know how to take screenshots. I didn't know how to do none of that. So, I mean, I'm completely overwhelmed with this shit. I'm also completely overwhelmed with people asking rhetorical questions or asking questions and not letting me answer, or asking 4 or 5 questions in a row, rapid fire, and then basically just guessing which one they want to apply an answer to, or stuff like that. Like, I seriously get overwhelmed with that. Or people saying, have you tried CARE? CARE is supposed to help with that. So the Kylie stuff, when Candy went with me to try to hopefully turn that in, but she didn't know what the hell was going on. Well, then we had to try to get a hold of Kylie, but of course the situation with Candy is that she's always sick. She's also got a family to take care of. She gets 0 service because she lives in the fucking mountains, so you know how that is. And then, of course, she was also given a job working as a manager at another deli at another Safeway. So, and she also didn't tell me when she picked up that extra stuff, which gave me basically 2 weeks of not knowing what the hell's going on, while I'm having to deal with all of the women in the deli who were witnesses to this shit, like all of them. And I'm having to hear from all of them, well, I thought Candy was helping you with that. I was like, no, she's not. She's always sick. She's always sick. The one time that we did try to go in, it's because instead of listening to me so she knew what was going on and looking at evidence like you've been doing, She wanted to have all these million ideas and tell me, oh, I called my mom to find out what we're supposed to do. I don't need you to call your mom to ask what you're supposed to do. I've got the instructions. At this point, I'm way ahead of you. The most that she's going to do is ask me if I've gone to all these places already. And I'm like, hey, will you please listen to the recordings with them? All right. Instead of asking me if I've been there every conversation that we have, it needs to not be a conversation. And that's where it ends up with men having to kill themselves. I mean, literally having to. It is a forced condition on men. When it gets to the point where we are being harassed and our families are being threatened and we're being treated like we're not a human being, and people have already decided that we're so retarded that they're going to make bad decisions for us without our permission and coordinate with other people to make those decisions for us without our permission and without knowing what's going on, without looking at that stuff. What kind of help are they actually going to provide when they've jumped the gun like that? And kind of like the situation where Candy was insistent that because she worked at the Safeway, it was going to be okay to work on my vehicle there. Well, it would be okay for her and Nathan to help do that. And then while we were working on my vehicle, which they completely lost the point of that, the point was to get my fuel filter out of the gas tank so I could fix it, which I couldn't do with all the stuff in my vehicle. But she'd already decided everything that her and Nathan were going to do, and this is their fix for it. So they ended up throwing away several binders that are, because they were soaked, people breaking my windows and shit like that. So she decided that she's going to tape a bunch of crap all over the side of my car that looked completely like shit. I couldn't see out of it. I'm like, this is not the help that I need. I know you're trying to be nice, but you're making things worse. And of course, my stuff is spread out all over the Safeway, parking space there and the parking space next to it and a little bit behind it. And of course, you got to see, well, have I showed you the Safeway thing yet?
No.
All right. That must have been either Seth or David I was showing it to. So with the Safeway thing, they got onto the Safeway thing and were complaining that some homeless guy was taking pictures of little kids in the bathroom going pee. Also that, and Andrew Wilness is one of them, by the way. He was claiming that he exposed a predator in their store. I'm like, yeah, he exposed himself. He exposed himself as a predator in Safeway. He started off his predatory career towards me at the Safeway, where all of the drug addicts hang out and congregate, which is at the can machine. Am I wrong?
No.
All right. So I had to stop going to turn in cans because it wasn't just Andrew Wilnez. A lot of people were there doing that. And there's videos of me in Hood River before I came here complaining that it's the same thing in Hood River. Except in Hood River, you got to stand in line for 45 minutes, whereas here you stand in line for 20 minutes if it's a long line. So, but then there's the situation with when I had to give out the numbers online, and it was because I had to. Candy was not coming through. She wasn't keeping her word. She wasn't being honest. She certainly wasn't coming forward. She kept on making decisions for me without knowing what's going on. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot by this, but kind of like what you were doing at the beginning. It's a situation where it was a, before you see it, it sounds crazy. Once you see it, you're able to verify it, and you know the difference between believing something happened and knowing something happened. With the stuff that you've gotten to hear and the stuff I've gotten to show you, you know those things happened. With her, she said she believed me, but she was pretty half-assed about it. Now, if she was that overwhelmed, the thing is that she still could have at any point in time, just like with that guy Don, who I was sending stuff to, and also Claire Jordan, who I was sending stuff to, and dozens of other people who promised that they were going to help me if I sent them evidence. Most of them didn't even look at it. They just talked about themselves or talked shit about everybody that was either a victim or a witness to the situation. So I'm trying to, for example, if I say anything about Sean, the guy in the wheelchair, to Mike at all, I know exactly where it's going to go and where the conversation is going to go. If I say anything at all to Sean at all, I know that I'm going to have to listen to stuff about Cassandra. I know that if I talk to Pun or Tiffany, you see where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
There's also, a lot of those folks who want to tell me that they don't call the cops because the criminal code or the convict code or whatever. And then I'm like, but I've been there when Mossam called the cops. I've been there when many of these other people who have told me that, or things that are similar, have been there to call the cops. So when I got to listen to these people talk about how it's not okay to go to the cops, only snitches go to the cops, like, yeah, I know. I've also got recordings of you calling the cops, so do you really want to be that much of a fucking dick about it? It's not a matter of trying to blackmail them. It's a matter of, I don't give a fuck what your excuse is. If you're going to change the rules for you and have a completely different set for me, then we're going to have issues. That's not a threat. That's literally an issue.
Yeah.
We should have the same rights. If you're allowed to tell me I'm a filthy fucking cunt, I should be allowed to call you a filthy cunt back. That's reciprocity. That's equality. What I'm dealing with is people who don't believe in equality. They believe in having a scapegoat. They believe in having somebody they can take their shit out on, and they go after somebody that they can just call mentally ill, insinuate as schizophrenic, and, well, the public doesn't care. Now, these Natalie Bollinger sites, most people don't get through the whole thing, and the majority of them spend, like, let's say it's a 45-minute segment. They'll spend 30 minutes talking shit about me. And then at the very end, like the last 5 minutes, then they say it was Joseph Lopez, the pizza delivery guy. Meanwhile, it's primarily women who are watching this stuff. 1 in 4 Americans falls asleep watching true crime, according to the Tillamook radio. 1 in 4 Americans falls asleep listening to true crime. Isn't that insane?
Yeah.
And from the experience that I've had, the majority of the people who get interactive with this are drug addicts and alcoholics. It's primarily women who live by themselves, but not always. But the drug addiction or alcoholism seems to be a pretty constant with them. There's a few of them that are pill poppers, but, well, as you're going to get to listen to with some of the next fellers, when you start listening to the stuff with David, the stuff with Jennifer, you already know about the situation with Valerie. But yeah, you're going to get how impossible it is to get help from those situations. It's like the situation with you sending me to Nicole Vertner, and then she sent me back to you, and then I ended up at Ryan Wood's house.
That was a cluster shake across the board.
Mm-hmm. So the first video, or the first recording that we made, is over an hour long. I know that because see how it says 01? Once it does that, it means that it's over an hour long. So that's how I can tell on this. The ones that I was showing you earlier that were like 2 or 3 hours long, some of those were with David. Some of the stuff in there, it will be very difficult not to judge a person for. So that's part of the reason we're listening to it offline. Also, part of the reason for that is because the stuff that he said could get people killed. Unlike Mike just talking about Mossam's 2 guns, that might get somebody killed. But the stuff with David that'd definitely get someone killed. So we'll probably try to listen to the stuff with David next. I'm going to turn this off because I do have them in here. I will probably change this over so that we can start off fresh, so that all the stuff that we're reading offline and sending in, it is verified. It will be the actual recordings, which is the same thing that I do on here. I post up the actual recordings, show the actual evidence. This one ought to be popular with a lot of my channel lovers, they certainly like stuff where I start off having a mental breakdown or fucking shouting at people. Did you take me shouting at you personal?
No.
What the fuck is wrong with you? Don't smile at me. That's my joke. But then there's some of the other stuff, like the video with Chris Stafford where he said, "Go ahead and call the cops." The cops laugh at me. I'll play that for you again. But I'm also going to play for you a couple of recordings from. He did talk to me afterwards. He talked to me about a month and a half ago with Seth, and he did apologize. He also admitted it was because uh, he had relapsed, which I already knew. I mean, it's not like, this is a pretty small city for a large town, but it's small enough the people out on the streets know the people on the streets. Also, the dealers all know each other, which is funny because they don't seem to be in the competition that they're in places like Denver. Basically, like, oh, I'm out, man. Can I come over and get fucked up on your couch? Oh, that's one of the issues also with a lot of the people who were going to help me is, like, for example, when Alexander went up the mountain with me, he would talk for 45 minutes and then he'd start getting tired and tell me he had to go off in the woods and take a shit. And then he'd come back 45 minutes to an hour later and he'd talk for 45 minutes and then he'd start going to sleep and then he'd need to go take another shit. So, it wasn't exactly helpful. I did give him $100 to help me, and that was I want to say that was still 2022. That was a long time ago. Um, and there's just been so many situations like that. Like people telling me from the very beginning, I can't do it because I don't have a phone. I can't do it because I don't have a computer. Um, and I've proven time and again, it doesn't matter if you have those things. You're still not going to fucking keep your word. You're just basically trying to get free shit at that point. So that's why the thing with the phones, why when I give them to people, I tell them expressly, this is very specifically so that you can help me. This isn't some sort of a bribe, and it's not me trying to make it so you can get your fucking drugs easier. This is so you can keep your word to help me. Pun and Tiffany told me that they would help me in 2022. In 2023, their situation changed a bit. They were going to help me before I went to jail, and then they were going to help me again when I got out of jail, and then they were going to help me as soon as they were able to get a phone that worked, and then they had to go run a bunch of other errands and do a bunch of other things, and it just ended up being obviously something going on since 2022. The stuff with Christian and Alexander, that stuff gets really scary because, like, at that point, the people at Tillamook Sporting Goods have asked me to keep an eye on the parking lot and basically make sure nobody vandalizes the place. Well, Christian Alexander, if you tell him no, is going to fucking vandalize something, as you well know. So then them youngins down there, I mean, they're tearing that shit up every night if they can get away with it. And, there's grown adults doing it with them. Also, the thing with that Taylor lady that I was telling you about, I thought she was an adult, and I knew that Kyron Rhodes was an adult. So the day after I got the protection order against Andrew Wolnez, and he called me over and over and over and over again, and I actually answered it, and it was him talking to me. And I did record his voice, and I was trying to show that they had literally given out my safe phone number to Andrew Wolnez. Now he's calling me from restricted numbers, and if I answer it, this is what I have to listen to. David Martinez wasn't having any of it. That's where the stuff from Lori Craig was important. That's actually still on my YouTube channel as well. David Martinez repeatedly obstructed justice and investigations. Now, the reason that I was specifically mentioning that Taylor lady is because, like, she's super tall, And the people that she was hanging out with and talking to in that group were primarily the ones that I either knew to be adults or had told me that they were adults. Like Kyron Rhodes was not an adult at that point, but he told me he was like 22. And then he celebrated his 18th birthday. And I was like, what the fuck, dude? What the fuck? But anyway, so when I had to turn that in, and Officer Fitzgerald was there, and he was sort of, almost doing his job. And as soon as I said Kyron Rhodes and Taylor White, that's when David Martinez started coming in with his shitty attitude, talking over it, making sure that no matter what, it wasn't good enough, saying things like, well, we can't just take an audio recording because the DA is a real stickler about that. I'm like, no, he's not. If you're fucking homeless, the DA doesn't even need any evidence. He'll just call you mentally ill and a drug addict, and the fucking public pretender's office will pull an aid and assist. I mean, it's easy. If you don't have a friend or family member, they don't even try to do their jobs. They pretend that the Natalie Bollinger situation didn't exist, and that the people like Andrew Wolnez who continue to assault me over it, apparently they don't exist either. Like, this is just insanity. I'm like, all right, so we have taken common sense and we have thrown it out the window.
Completely.
Yeah. So now when you've got a police officer you're trying to turn in, and he takes away your phone and your other evidence, and has you locked up on a civil hold, or has you locked up in jail and or prison on a, what do they call that? A county safe keep. Yeah. So Dual County is not big enough to hire jail staff. As a result, you go to a different county. What that means is that if you try to turn in the sheriff and he assaults you for it, he gets to send you to another jurisdiction where they get to say, well, we don't have to observe your rights because you're not our prisoner, you're Dual County's prisoner. And we don't have to observe your rights as a Dual County prisoner because you're not in Dual County. Oh, by the way, you can't turn in the sheriff from here, even though he utilized another county to prevent you from turning him in after assaulting you for trying to turn him in. Well, you're also not allowed to turn him in here because you're in the wrong jurisdiction. So you can get an attorney when you get out. God bless America. So doing what Tamara said didn't result in people knocking off the abuse. It just made it easier for them to get away with it. Tamara quit her job as soon as I got my disability. There was two more parts to it. Filling out the paperwork to get the developmental disability assistance because I got post-traumatic stress disorder so bad. And of course, trying to tell people what's going on, and they just get bored with it because it's not happening to them. It's no big deal. That's dehumanizing. And of course, with all these folks out here that are on drugs, each and every one of them, you're going to hear that in those videos. I'm not like that. I'm not like that. I know most of the drug addicts out here are like that, but I'm not like that. From every single one of them. Every one. So between that and the suggestions of violence, you're going to get to hear me telling every one of these people that I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with that line of thinking. And also, even if you're just joking around, as some of these people claim later, first of all, most of them didn't say them in a joking fashion. And second of all, I don't want to see anybody get their head separated from their body. Make sense? All right. Sorry, YouTube. I started this video off yelling at an asshole, and unfortunately, he would not yell back at me. So we're going to have to do what my predators do, and I'm just going to keep on poking him with a stick over and over and over again. And when he yells, knock it off, I'm going to make sure that he's arrested for disturbing the peace. At least you get that that's a sick joke based on the reality of the situation.
Because that's what's happened to you, basically.
Yeah. So, I guess we ought to turn this off and turn that off, and I'll get started on that part. Also, the thing with Andrew breaking the protection order the other night with the third party thing. Um, what you were saying earlier about it when you read the list, we weren't actually online when you did that. So that's one of the things you're actually recorded on here. But where is it? Did I put it in my pocket? So when we were reading it, uh, I'm trying to remember what, or not reading it. After you got done reading it, what did you say?
As I've watched him break all these.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying on my video prior to that too. So that's one of the things about having somebody look at it and verify it, and also the verifying it live thing is important because if the point of putting it on YouTube is that if somebody verifies it and they can hear it being verified, then they know it's being verified. It's the same as, like, for example, with this. This is going to catch it even if you're mumbling. This thing is badass. Right now, the YouTube is not picking up the chainsaw they're using over there, but this is. That sounds like a Power Wheels, doesn't it? Yeah, that's not a chainsaw. That's Power Wheels. So that's one of the things about making the live videos is if it's something important, especially if it's an important detail that people will want or need access to. If God forbid I end up in jail, prison, or dead, it's public for people to see. It's public for people to hear, and it's public for people to go find out what's going on. They can go ask those people. Also, with a lot of them being on my YouTube channel, uh, a lot of those people are pissed off and will likely go, "What the fuck?" But they had their chance, and I do let everybody know that I record. I don't hide it from people. If I'm out in public and I gotta, use my cane in one hand and have something else in the other hand, I have to slip my recording device into my pocket. That's not a situation where I'm trying to hide it from people. It's a situation where I've only got one free hand. So when we're reading that stuff, and we're reading what the stipulations are, it's important to make sure that, well, I show it on here by holding it up, but this is grainy as fuck and it's a pain in the ass and doesn't necessarily show it. That's why if somebody is able to read it, then they're able to tell that it's not something that they're just making up off of the top of their head. It's also not something where I'm paying some drug addict to come in here and pretend for me so that he can make a few bucks to go fucking get a bottle and drink his own piss out of, which is some of the stuff people have typed. They also type shit like "you drink your own pee." Although one of my favorite songs is "I'm sexy and I'm homeless." I'm sexy and I'm homeless. All right, so I'm going to end this. I'm sorry I talked for so long, but I basically started it off with a mental breakdown over trying to answer a question.